Welcome to the Driven Agenda podcast. And I have my good friends here, Kate and Lance Rudzinski. Who are Kate and Lance Rudzinski, and what the hell kind of last name is that?
Well, originally I'm from Poland, and uh, that's originally where my family's from. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
First time here. First time here. Long time listener. But met Kate in law school. We reconnected about 10 years later, and I think that was it. That's all she wrote, and it's been almost 6 years now coming up. Hopefully,
Nice.
marriage. And what do you say, Kate?
I say that's the story.
It's a good story. So I first met Kate and Lance at a holiday party, and Lance comes through the front door. I'm talking to my buddy Dave, and comes barreling through the front door. You know, he's 5'8", 130 pounds, so he's pretty big. Just kidding. If you haven't seen Lance, he's ex-football player, so he's massive. And he comes through the front door of this party. I have no idea who he is, and he walks straight up to me and Dave and looks us in the eye like a weirdo and says, "Hey, are any of you rich?" And Dave and I look at each other like, who the hell is this weirdo? Anyway, party got really fun. Some people may or may not have, jumped in the pool by the end of the night. But ever since then, that's the first time we met them years ago. And ever since then, I've probably talked to Lance almost every single day since then. And although we haven't known each other for long, probably 2.5 years, we've become very good, close friends. He's a phenomenal trial lawyer, so we co-counsel cases together. He has his own partner in his own law firm. Kate is a lawyer as well, but we don't want to talk about that boring stuff because no one cares about law and boring law. We are here because Kate and Lance have a really cool second full-time job, and they are serial entrepreneurs, and they have a company called Epic Getaways where they are Airbnb hosts and owners of multiple Airbnb properties. And I've always been impressed with how they run this, how successful they are. So, and it's not something that I've ever seen or known anyone else of my friends doing. So I figured it'd be an interesting podcast to learn about how they got into it, their portfolio, how successful they are, and then give some tips for people who might be interested in getting into this business. So first off, how do we have our law practices full time. How do we even get into an Airbnb business? How do we even say, hey, I want to start an Airbnb?
So that's a great question. I guess I'll take the lead on this. It really started back in post-COVID, just about a few months after COVID, and 2020. And we decided to go on a trip down to the Keys with a couple of friends. And this was the first time that I had at least reached out and booked an Airbnb. And we booked this Airbnb, and I was the one that booked it. And I don't know if I think Kate has booked Airbnbs in Europe and things like that, but this was my first time. I was taking the lead. So when I booked it, I had to reach out, and this was my first time realizing that, wait, an individual owns this Airbnb in Marathon. That's where we were going. And it was this person that I was dealing with, checking in, checking out. Do you have towels? What's there to do? And this person was just, 5 stars all the way, helped us with any questions that we had. And so that was my first start into the Airbnb world back post-COVID. And so we took the trip down to Marathon with a couple friends, and it was beautiful, right? There was a pool. We had it was a little house with its own pool and its own dockage, and I think we were paying like $500, $600 a night. There was maybe 5 or 6 of us, and just everything was top of the class. I mean, we rented a boat, and the Airbnb host had an on-site boat, signed a waiver, and so it was a great weekend. And so post COVID, we're driving back, and we had a lot of conversations with the host. And I look at Kate and I said, Kate, this host is getting $500 or $600 a night for this, you know, small house, right, in Marathon. And is this something like we could do? We had a little bit of money saved up, um, and then that's when the wheels, at least for me, started turning. And funny story, on the way back from the Keys, we reached out to the host, and I called her cell phone, and very helpful, very nice lady. She told us sort of her story very quickly, that she had a couple in Marathon and that she was looking to expand into Tennessee and Pigeon Forge area. And so, we had a long conversation, and that's really when it's sort of that seed got planted. And looked at Kate. I said, I think we should investigate this. Let's see what this lady's talking about in Tennessee. And long story short, within a couple weeks, I think uh, I had offered on a cabin up in Tennessee. Hadn't seen it. I think I saw one video, hired a realtor, saw one video, and we were under contract within like 2 weeks from that date of renting the house in Marathon. And so that's how we sort of got the ball rolling. And Kate was on board, and she says, "Hey, let's do it."
Why the Pigeon Forge when you had such a good experience in Marathon, though?
So we had that conversation with our host, and she, she sort of turned us on to it, in terms of that it's a lot bigger. Um, Really, it's when people go to Tennessee, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, they want to stay in these cabins. And so, that's a great question. Eventually, we did actually buy in Marathon, but when we were looking at cabins, it's interesting. This was my first time when you're looking at a cabin, and they actually have numbers. If it's a rental cabin, they actually have numbers, yearly numbers. You could see how the cabin is doing based upon the property management. So to me, that was really cool. The mountains were really cool. Hadn't been there before. I didn't even know where it was on the map, honestly. And what's Pigeon Forge? We'd never been there. And a month later, we're driving up for the inspection.
Pretty wild. I have to admit, you guys know, I did the same thing. Bought sight unseen in Blue Ridge, really knowing much about Blue Ridge, but it ended up turning out. So, what was the year that you guys started this? Like 2021? Just like right after COVID?
So we ended up closing on the first cabin in October of 2020. I think the that trip was August of 2020 down to Marathon. And so the one cabin that we had been under contract on, the very first one, we ended up actually walking away. We drove up there to Pigeon Forge, first time ever. Quite an adventure. We we see you. I think you were there recently, and you see the parkway. You're like, "What is this? This is crazy." It's like Las Vegas of the South without the
It's
casinos.
it's
I mean, I've
interesting.
never seen something
Yeah.
like that before. We stayed in another cabin, and it was just a fun, unique experience. You see all the games, and you see, at least for me, I see all the people, all the games,
Yes.
and I see lots of reservations, right? Lots of money potentially. So we were a little nervous and scared, I think, because the first inspection didn't come out perfect like how we were expecting. And little did we know that no inspection in the mountains is ever perfect. So we actually walked away from that deal, which I think I mean, the price was so low. It's like we
We
kick
wish,
ourselves.
yeah, we wish we would have gotten that first.
Um, and then so we drive back home, and I'm like talking to the agent. This is COVID when the rates are really low. I mean, 3% you're getting
Yeah.
on second home rates. And I'm like, we're never gonna get one. People are offering cash. People are offering 100,000 over asking now at this point. And somehow they found this cabin we landed on. It was off market, or somebody, we just scooped it up and again put in an offer. And then we redid that process all over again, went back up, drove back up. And then the second time we ended up closing. And that's just an even more crazy story in terms of we thought the cabin was gonna fall off a cliff. And
Typical Floridians.
so you you learn really you become a real expert on the real estate side of things in terms of the inspections and what you look for, and then negotiating off of that inspection and finally ultimately closing on our first cabin.
And also how more relaxed they are up there as far as inspection, things like that compared to here.
Definitely.
It's a whole, it's a
Yeah.
different world up there.
Yeah. Yes.
What do you mean? There's no
No permits.
regulations, no permits.
My realtor, we don't do permits here. Okay.
I'll be there at
Nice.
10 o'clock,
Yeah.
and then I'll show up till noon.
Let's talk about your portfolio. So I know you have a whole bunch of homes that you own and you host, but then you've also branched out and you host people like myself, mine and Vinny's home that we have in Blue Ridge. Um, talk about your portfolio.
So the portfolio started with that first cabin in Pigeon Forge. Right away, Kate, she's doing all the daily stuff in terms of guests, and it was a learning curve. I mean, we learned everything we could. We were listening to podcasts, reading books. How does this really work? Picking a lot of people's brains. The first lady in Marathon, I mean, we actually called her several times, and she sort of gave us a lot of good tips and we really really great advice. And so
Did she know you guys ended up
Yeah, we continue to talk to her.
kind of competing with her? Did she care about
no,
that to
she
happen?
not at all. It's not like that. There's as you know, there's so many opportunities. There's so much real estate out there. She was helping us.
Okay.
And even the first management company that ran the cabin that we bought, we reached out to them, and it was a mom and pop kind of place, and we had no idea. And basically, taking her deposition on a Saturday afternoon, figuring out how you do all this stuff, right? How do you? I mean, we didn't know anything,
Right.
and so it took a couple months, and we're just gathering all of that information and reading books, listening to other podcasts, and right away we realized that we were doing almost double what the old property management company was doing in
Right.
terms of numbers. And I'm looking at Kate. I'm like, hey, this is insane. I think we got to get another cabin. And so it was 4 or 5 months later,
Yeah,
we closed on our second cabin.
money we made from the cabin.
Right.
Yeah. So we didn't take out any of that money that we were making on the first cabin and literally just rolled that over into the second cabin.
That's what I was going to ask because you got multiple properties now. Obviously, you need some cash, good credit, a good salary, whatnot. But there are ways where you can get in, and people maybe who don't make as much money as you and I do in our careers can get in for low amounts, and there's way around it. But how do you keep stacking these cabins and condos?
So that's a great question. I think that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. I mean, I had to really learn every angle of loans in terms of what's the best loan, how do you get the loans, um, where do you hunt for them. Ultimately, I guess to answer your question, uh, the first one I always say, if you're trying to get into the business, into an Airbnb, get one. I always say get a second. It's called a second home loan. Your second home, and why that's important is you can get into a property with 10% down. You're not using 20% like normal, and you're getting better interest rates. So our first cabin, the first one I just talked about, it was a second home loan. Technically, you have to stay there for I think a couple weeks during the year,
Yeah, I think it's like a week.
week or two
Hopefully.
weeks, and they give you better rates. And so you're getting into a property. Hopefully, that's cash flowing well for you at 10%. You're only allowed one of those, um, really second home loans. Sometimes if you want to stretch it, maybe you can get a second one, right? You do one in the mountains and then you do one on the beach, right?
Right.
You have two second homes. And then I found out you've got to really have a lot of friends uh, that are mortgage brokers, not just typical banks. And I had probably 3 or 4 different brokers or agents that had all the tax returns, and I would reach out to each one of them. What's the best rate? What can you do for me? And so you build that relationship, and as we were building the properties, they knew the relationship, and so, you could get a loan just like that at some point down the line because they know your financials, they know who you are,
And
and
the proven track record of each cabin
right,
helps as well.
right, and they know what you're doing. So, um, yeah, I think the loans it can be crazy. You can, uh the other cabins that we bought, you can put 15% down. They're investment loans. There's also what's called a DSCR loan. Forget what it stands for, but really, there's no real credit check on some of these loans where they qualify you based upon what they believe the property can do. And so that's actually the loan that's really not even on your credit report. So there's a lot of different type of loans that you can get based upon the property that you're looking for.
Right. So you gotta have a good mortgage lender that
Mortgage,
knows their
yeah,
stuff to
multiple.
kind of finagle legally how you can get into these things. So, Kate, how many properties do you have and where are they located?
So we have 4 cabins in Pigeon Forge. We have 1 cabin in Blue Ridge, and then condos in Marathon, Florida.
Okay. And so overall, let's say in those 3 demographics, which area do you think is the most successful or profitable for you?
That's really hard.
Well,
They're
each
actually all really, really successful and really great areas that people all year round long.
we wanted to find areas that were a couple things. They had a proven track record for visitors in terms of Airbnb. They've been there a long time. They've been established. Not as maybe we know some of the Airbnb laws have changed, right? But these areas have established Airbnb rules, regulations. We know that's not going to change. And Blue Ridge, they're heavily relied upon cabins in that kind of business. Same thing with Pigeon Forge. Those are very destination vacation oriented places. Marathon, same thing, right? Everybody wants to go to the Keys at some point in time, and there's limited land. There's limited places to be. And so that was sort of our thought process in terms of why we picked those places, ultimately finding that out. But each one has their off season and their in season, and some of them do incredibly well, and it's surprising. And then you get the off seasons, and you try to fill your occupancy the best that you can in the off.
Do you have a favorite out of all of them? Not necessarily money-wise, but is there one that you have that you just like, I love this place?
I think Kate's got go ahead.
I actually really like all of them, but the one in Blue Ridge, the cabin's pretty special, pretty unique. I would say that would be my favorite.
So, who you guys gotta do your day job, so to speak, but this is a day job, and the reason why we decided to have you guys as hosts. Because 'cause I've had people say to me, "Why don't you host it on your own?" Or, "Why don't you go with someone that has" I've had people saying we've debated that, me and Vinny in the beginning, with less percentage, and I say to these people, like, "So if a host calls you at, 1 in the morning with an emergency, you're gonna be up and awake and be able to deal with it. You have the time. Or, in the middle of the day of your job, if someone calls for an emergency, are you gonna be able to handle it, whatnot?" And some people can, but with Vinny's job, he's in surgery, and with me, I'm slammed and I'm all over the place. There's just no way I could do it. And so, Kate and Lance, they've got a pretty decent percentage that they take on our thing, but on our rental, but I'm telling you, everything has been 5 star. There are hardly any issues that she tells us about, and the things that do come up, we know after the fact, and she handles it, and everyone that stays loves it. And I think you, not bragging, but I think you said our cabin was like the best one last month. So,
That's
and you doubted us. You're like,
it.
"Oh, it's too far away from Blue Ridge and blah, blah, blah," and it ended up I mean, all of us, this cabin, I'm super happy with it, and Vinny and I are so happy that, we found you guys because I know it's a hard job, and I know you're different, so we could have gone to one of the big companies, the more general ones that charge less fees, but, you're different in that you go to our cabin and you actually live there for sometimes weeks at a time, and you're shopping different states looking to stage it and, just creating this amazing ambience, and I think that's what sets you apart. How do you get into that? How do you know how to do that?
That's all Kate, so go ahead.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't know, like, I'm a lawyer, but we learned real fast. We really jumped in, head first and learned as much as we could, and buying all those cabins relatively quickly, really got a lot of hands-on experience, and, so I would put myself in the guest shoes, and pretty easy to know what you need to do. So, in the differences, like, I go to the cabin, I decorate it, and I'm really close. I have a really close relationship with my handyman and my cleaner that I talk to every day. I make sure to continue it nice, keep it running like
right.
that with the personal touches.
It makes sense doing the staying there because you actually can live in it and you can see if little things like a toilet's leaking or the stairs are loose or maybe the burner on one of the stove, like all those little things that probably the big companies aren't doing that. So we thought it was weird at first. Like I'm gonna come live in your cabin for a week and but, it all made sense, and it turned out like it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the place. I can't get up there enough, but I know you guys have, your other cabins as well, not only in Blue Ridge, but, Pigeon Forge, and, you've got this theme where I say we, but you name them all, and so all of our cabins have a name. Ours is the Hidden Deer, and then you guys got what? What are some of the names?
Mighty Moose, Barking Bear, Dancing
I
Deer,
love it. It's cool.
Big
So
Enough.
it's kinda like a little trademark you guys have on your Airbnb, profile and whatnot where it separates you guys as well. So you guys are super creative, super smart, entrepreneurial, and, it's really cool to be a part of, your business and, not only being friends and business partners, but, working with you guys in Airbnb. What's probably, one of the biggest challenges you guys have had doing this?
It's a good question. Um, I think the daily challenges is really on Kate. I mean, you were just talking about, dealing with guests and running 7, 8, 9 properties. She's constantly on the phone. Like you said, it could be 1 in the morning, midnight. I mean, we've got stories galore about guests locking themselves out of the cabin or the condo at 2 in the morning coming back from the bar. And what do you do? How do you get them in? And so, I mean, calling locksmiths at 3 a.m., trying to drive from Key West to Marathon to
Yeah.
chisel out and have the guests get into the condo. The list goes on and on. We could probably tell a lot of stories, funny stories. They're not funny at the time, but
Learning lessons.
learning lessons, and you learn to be more productive. I hate to say like idiot proof because you got to make sure. I mean, you'll get
You
it.
have to think of everything, anything that could go wrong, yeah.
How do you turn on the TV? How do you
Yes.
work the hot
You
tub?
you I
How
forgot
do you
about
work
that.
the
You
stove?
guys have so what they do too is they create procedures for every house. So, if you can't figure out how to use a remote for one of the TVs, they have a procedure for how to do it, and, that's good too. They take a lot of time to, make sure that really, in essence, that they don't have to handle a complaint or an issue if a guest has one. If the guest refers to the procedure book or whatever it is, or the video I think you guys
Yeah,
make, then usually they can solve their own problems, and that's very smart. That's what a lot of people use in business, KPIs and procedures.
that's another reason we stay there, and then, I mean, literally, we have a video on how to work for all the cabins, which seems easy, but I'm telling you, probably like
Like the number, yeah.
25% of the people that stay there for some reason
So
can't do
number
it.
one, they show up at 4 o'clock. By 4:30, how do you turn on the TV?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
So
so
TV, internet, yeah.
when we stay in the cabins, that's exactly right. I mean, we'll stay for a day or two and just live like you're a guest, and I've got a notepad just writing stuff down that I see. change this bulb. How do you work the stove? How do you work the grill? How do you do this? How do you do that? I think we're going to try to come up with something where you can put a QR code on the actual appliance or the TV, so that if the guest doesn't know how to use it, they could just
Oh,
scan the
wow.
QR code and it pops up a video
Nice.
that shows you how to turn on the TV.
Speaking of that, and I know we're a little bit kind of getting close to the time, but what do you see for your future as far as making any kind of changes based on the past? So you mentioned the QR code thing, which is absolutely genius. Any other things that you guys have planned that you're changing up, or services or anything you're offering?
Well, we're working all the time to stay on, like, the cutting edge, integrating AI and,
Automations. I know you guys
yeah,
are good with automations.
automations, um, and just to keep every place as busy as possible
Mm.
and, you know,
Not just busy,
um
but also, profitable in
Right.
terms of getting as many reservations. But also, we recently, um, Kate organized and released what we're launching Epic Concierge, where guests can come into the cabin and scan, or they'll see certain services, right? Early check-in, late checkout, massages, chefs, excursions, trips.
when they book, I send them a link, and it's basically like a store for all these different things, plan it and book ahead of time.
Nice.
So just things like that. I mean, you're always learning. We're evolving. AI is so great, but certainly get as much occupancy as you can, as much profit as you can. And I always say, when those guests are in the cabin, they should be our guests forever. They're little money making machines for us in terms of whatever it may be. And if they stay at the Hidden Deer 1 year, maybe they stay in Pigeon Forge the next. And I know Kate's got plenty of guests that reach out to her, and they're in the marathon. They're saying, "Oh, you've got places in Blue Ridge. I want to stay there." So we're cross marketing in that regard.
That's amazing because that's in mine and your business, as you know. We prefer referrals, and our clients kind of are our biggest referral source and repeat clients. So you have that built in. You lock them in one time, give them a good experience, and then they're going to come back, whether it's at that property or they're going to say, "Oh, look, they got 8 other properties or whatever. Let's try this one out." So it's all about customer experience, and you guys definitely bring it. Even when we stay at our own cabin and you guys get it ready for us. It's just, it really is like a magical experience. I still can't believe sometimes that we have the cabin, and we've been wanting one for a long time. And you guys do a really good job when the first time we open the door, and with all the things that you have laid out for us.
That's all.
And you make it
That's all
special
Kate.
with everybody. You
Yeah.
Yeah.
make it look like it's personal for everybody, which is what people like. Um, where do you see Airbnb in the future? Where's the trend? I know after COVID, it was just exploded, and I know it's kind of corrected. Do you see it shooting back up again, evening out, going down based on, the last year or so?
So you're right. I think there was that boom, and then it has corrected, and a lot of the hosts that wanted to get rich or make a ton of money realized it wasn't just this simple game. A lot of those, I think, hosts have sold their properties because they didn't. It wasn't what they thought it was cracked up to be. What I've noticed, at least in terms of occupancy and numbers, it goes up and down years, waxes and wanes, really like with the market sometimes. Because if you got a good market, you're going to get a ton of reservations in terms of what we're doing, and that's what we've noticed, right? If the market's down, or a war starts, things like that, people are a little bit more conscious with what they're spending on. I think Airbnb's here to stay, but certainly that's why we picked areas, going back to vacation destinations. No matter what happens, people are going to want to take a vacation. Smoky Mountains is one of the most vacation spots in the entire United States. It's drivable within a day. 60% of the United States, you can get there
Yep.
within a day driving. Same thing with Blue Ridge. So I think those areas are here to stay. Um, but then on the other side, the cities and things in those areas that change their laws, I think some of those Airbnbs are getting pushed out. But vacation destinations, that's why we went that route. I think is here to stay because everyone's going to want to take a vacation.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know,
I love it. Every time I get out, Out of here, it's so nice to spend a good week or so in the mountains, just away from human beings and cars and all that stuff, and
You were
kinda
in
get
Pigeon Forge. How was that?
uh, I'm biased, and I don't know. I have friends who, went to Pigeon Forge, and they love it. We weren't feeling it.
I got to know what your thought was when you first saw the parkway
Well,
and all these
I
games,
will tell you,
drives.
you suggested we stay in one of your cabins. We did not, and that was a little bit of a regret because the Dollywood Hotel was not impressive whatsoever. But with that being said, um, it's just a lot of really, really touristy stuff, and I know that's what that is about, but, the dinner show was $400 for fried chicken, and the mountain roller coaster was absolutely amazing, but it's $100 for all 4 of us, and in 15 minutes, you're done. Then the kids are like, "What's next?" So then we go to the snow tubing, and that's $100 for them for an hour, and then they're like, "Well, what's next?" So you're just going from ride and then driving to another ride to another ride. I mean, I know there's Dollywood theme park, but I think it was raining and very cold. We didn't wanna do that, but let's say you even did that for a day. After that, Ferris wheel's $60 for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So, I was kinda like, "Shit, I thought Disney was expensive, but it's really not now because I'm having to drive to all these things."
That's why
I
I
don't know, I
recommend the
just,
cabin, 'cause
Right.
stay in the cabin, play the
my
game room.
2 of my friends that went to Pigeon Forge, I could tell they loved it with their families. We ended up and my boys said, we joked, "You wanna go see, our family over in Blue Ridge?" And they're like they lit up. So, we ended up checking out early, heading over to Blue Ridge, and, Blue Ridge is we have a that's our that's our spot.
We'll
Um,
go up next time we go up. We'll go up. We'll stay in the cabin. We'll do it right.
yeah.
And
I
and
think the cabin
I
experience would have been nice in Pigeon Forge, but we wouldn't like, at nighttime, but we still the area just kinda wasn't our thing. I don't know, maybe we need to go try it again, but, we left early.
you've got the cabin with the hot tub,
No, that's what I'm
pool
saying, that's
table.
stuff
Yeah,
you do at
you
night.
need
We
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing that in the day because we wanna go check out the town, but we weren't again, maybe I need to try it one more time, but the
it's
point
not
is
for
we
everyone,
yeah.
but it's for the majority of, people who really
Well,
like
listen, the
They
it.
love
place
those
is
That's why
packed.
we have
It's way more
tickets in.
packed.
Yeah.
Yes, it's way more packed than Blue Ridge. It's a different vibe in a way. There still is the nature which we didn't get to see. I know there's plenty of beautiful things in Pigeon Forge, but so I'm not trying to shit on it, but for us, it was just a little bit different. But
It's the
again,
Smoky Mountains. That's why people go there. The Smoky
yeah,
Mountains, hiking,
yep.
Gatlinburg.
But then
That's the other
there's
side of
people
it.
that like all that touristy stuff, like the t-shirt shops. I mean, they're there for a reason. Every block is an old time photo, which we did. We
Did you
did an old time photo
Yeah,
with
that's good.
cowboy gear.
did you go to the Bears store where they've got either alligators, bears,
No.
sharks in
But
the
every
back of the store?
block as well had some name. It's Pancake House, like Uncle John's
Yeah,
Pancake
yeah.
House and this Pancake House, and we went to one of them. But anyway, it's an interesting town. It is cool, but, I think we're spoiled from Blue Ridge. I think my family, that's kind of our vibe, and now that we've got family up there, we're enjoying it. So, where can people find you guys if they want to reach out and book, one of your properties, or if maybe someone has questions about, running an Airbnb and having a business like you guys?
On our website, it's epicgetaways.com, and there you'll also find my phone number, my email, direct contact, shout to me, call me, text me, email me anytime.
And you're on Instagram as well?
Yeah, right. Instagram, Facebook, Epic Getaways. You'll find it on both of those.
Cool. I always kinda end the podcast with the question. The podcast is called The Driven Agenda, and it's just about people who have drive and why they do what they do. So, with that being said, you guys are full-time lawyers with very stressful jobs, and then you've got this Airbnb business. How do you find or have the drive to do this?
Uh, I think you make the time for anything you wanna do, you really wanna be good at. You're gonna make the time. You have to like to do it as well. You gotta have some fun doing it. It's now turned into, when we go on vacations, we're going to one of our properties and staying, and it's sort of bringing our families down or staying with us. So you gotta like to do it. You know, Sometimes I think the drive in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, you just got to have that it factor. You got to want it more than somebody else, and just jump in, do it. I've sort of been a risk taker. You know that. I jump in first, and sometimes I'll ask questions later. But sometimes I think that's the best way to learn. And with Kate there, and she makes it a heck of a lot of fun. But I don't know, babe. What do you think?
Well, I think we just kinda got into it, and it was exciting, and it was kind of like, our thing that we did. We did it together, and we both like working, like making money. We're working, making money, and kinda having a new venture.
And you guys are very competitive too.
Right.
Lance played football for a while, and Kate is the only person I know that is an amazing kiteboarder. So you guys just have it all in you, and you're just built to be entrepreneurs. So I want to thank you guys for your time and coming in. I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone learned a lot from them because they are doing a really good job in the Airbnb business. So if you want to rent one of their cabins or their condos, you're going to have an amazing experience. Just go look at the reviews that they're getting. Look at the reviews on our cabin too, the Hidden Deer. And every cabin, every property is built for a certain type of family and experience. And that's what's great about them. So thank you guys for coming in.
Alright, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Shannon. See you soon.